It's Claire Portis from I Wish I Can, I Will, and welcome to today's Make It Happen Hangout. I'm here with Tamsen Garrie from The Act of Attraction. Hi, Tamsen.
Hello, Claire. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, have you ever wondered why some people appear to create massive success in their business with ease and grace, and some of us or some other people struggle? And well, the answer lies in the act of attraction, and that is Tamsen's speciality. So Tamsen is an author, she's a speaker, she's a mentor, she's a coach, she's a business owner, she's, manages to make it happen left, right and centre. And I wanted her to join us today to share with us some of her secrets around the act of attraction, because every week, every day, I talk to women who maybe are stuck in a rut, who aren't making it happen, and equally on the other side, I meet other women who make it happen all the time and are making it happen. So the aim of these interviews, and the reason I'm talking to Tamsen, is to find out what she does to make it happen, how she makes it happen, and maybe she could share with us some of the secrets that she uses. So Tamsen, I'm going to hand over to you. I'm so glad you joined us today.
Excellent. Thanks for that introduction, Claire.
You're welcome. And the other thing I'm going to say is this is Tamsen's book, which I love, The Act of Attraction. And I find this my go-to book, which is just brilliant for getting yourself focused and really getting an idea of what you want and how you can get it. So we'll talk about that later, Tamsen, but that can be part of your story, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
So I thought what we'd start off with, Tamsen, if you could tell us a little about you and about your journey, that would be a great way to start.
Okay, lovely. Well, my background's in human resources in the corporate sector in London. So I started in oil and gas. I had a few jobs before that, but that was really when my career kicked off. In operational management. I noticed that you looked really excited when I said oil and gas, Claire.
Okay, yeah, she knows where I can get a cheap deal on oil and gas.
I spent 6 years in that industry, and I was very ambitious, and I climbed the career ladder very quickly. I realised about 3 years into operational management that actually what really motivated me was the impact I could have on the people, more than it was about the systems and the processes. And of course, I learnt later on that one of the ways that you have an impact on people is through systems and process. So I've become a big fan of those things now. But back then it was really about how can I impact the lives of, and really specifically the working lives of people that I work with. So there was a lady that I worked with who was the HR manager, and I kind of attached myself to her, and I went on this human resources journey, and I went back to night school and did my IPD and kind of, raised myself through the ranks, for want of a better term, and found myself at the age of 26 in a senior management role with a very large team. A team that grew because one of my colleagues went on maternity leave, so I was given her team as well. And of course, what I'd managed to do was create this whole kind of external perception of being, highly competent, highly confident, and a bit of a star, really. And actually, whilst on the outside that was all true because I did a good job, the reality was the job was too big for me, really. So at 26 years old, with all of this responsibility, I was overcompensating in a lot of things. So, I was drinking too much, I was spending too much money, I was having too late nights, and I burnt out. It's the short version. My back gave in, literally, and laid up in 2 weeks in bed. I had to ask myself, some serious questions about, is this really success? I've got this lovely flat in Chelsea, a nice car, a nice relationship, a good job, but I'm not very happy. So that was kind of the beginning, really, of the journey, which is I've always been someone to make it happen, Claire.
Yeah.
Making it happen alone isn't necessarily good, because it's about what you're making happen. So what I learned back then was that actually, my nickname was Tam with a plan, because I had a plan for everything.
Fantastic.
And that was in my personal life. Yes. That was in both my personal life and my corporate life as well.
Yeah.
So I learned that actually planning creates amazing outcomes. It's really important, and it will get you where you want to go as long as you're clear about where that is.
Yeah.
And of course, the error that I'd made was that I hadn't got really clear about what I wanted.
Right,
and
yes.
although I was motivated by enabling success for others, and that's not language that I would have used back then, but that's how I describe it now, I didn't really know why that motivated me. And part of that was age, but part of that was that I'd kind of pursued these traditional routes to success, you know, having my own property, having my own car, having a good job, having a nice social life, going on nice holidays. It was like tick, 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 tick. And of course, by definition, if you have a list of things that you want and you tick them all off, one could say that you are a success.
Yeah.
But if you're not happy,
yeah,
if you're not enjoying what you're doing, if your health is compromised, then for me, how can that possibly be success? That's not successful. So that kind of started this kind of question, really. It took me about 3 years to do anything with it. You know, I had 3 years of soul searching, and at the age of 29, I had what I now describe as my midlife crisis.
It's quarter, isn't it? The quarter life crisis now at 25.
Yeah. It is now. So that was the time when I, you know, basically found myself working at Goldman Sachs. So you don't get much more corporate than that. Became very disillusioned with the corporate world, realised that there was a real limitation to the impact that I could really have in that environment. And to cut a very long story short, I pretty much threw my life up in the air. I did this pendulum swing from I really, really know what I want and I'm going to go for all those things to actually I've got no idea now.
Yeah.
I think got it wrong twice. You know.
That's a scary place to be, isn't it, Tamsen? Because you're kind of thinking, well, if I don't want that, what bloody hell do I want? And I think all the time when I'm talking to women is that they say, you want to make it happen, well, what is it you're trying to make happen? What is it you want? And people don't know. They can't articulate it. And I've been there myself, so I completely understand that.
Yeah. And that's where I was. And I was fortunate enough that I had some money behind me because, my work was well paid. And I also had a property that actually I realised wasn't a sign of success at all. It was a noose around my neck because I had a huge mortgage.
Yeah.
So I sold it. And I left my partner, and I left my car, and sold my car, left my job, and I just got on a plane. I went to Melbourne.
Wow! Just rucksack on, off you trot.
Basically, and while I was there for 4 years. I didn't intend to be there that long.
Just before we get to that,
yeah.
What point did you go? It was when you were lying in bed with this obviously terrible back problem. Then you went, right, I'm going to Australia. You know what? Obviously, all this build up to this, that was the kind of the catalyst.
Yeah.
And was there an instant when you went, right, I'm going to Australia?
The instant was the moment when I was working for this large corporate investment bank, and they had amazing benefits for their employees. And there was a lady who earned a ridiculous salary and a ridiculous bonus every year, who was pregnant. And they had the best maternity policy you could possibly imagine. And she would effectively be paid for 2/3 of a year a ridiculous sum to be at home and have her child. That was the bottom line. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to her and telling her about this. And I remember her going off and having a baby. And I remember 2 weeks later her being back in the office.
Oh.
And I remember news kind of getting to me that she was back in the office, and me going to see her and saying, what on earth are you doing here? And her saying, well, I get it that there's these amazing benefits, but actually I know that if I don't come back, I won't be able to keep my job. They'll replace me. They'll make it difficult for me. Now, whether that was true or not, that was her perception.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, gosh, even with all of this money and all of these textbook perfect HR solutions and benefits designed to quote unquote support work-life balance, it's still not translating.
Yeah.
So what am I doing here?
I'm here.
Yeah. And that was the moment. It was in that moment that I thought, do you know what? If I don't get out now, I'll never get out. Because every year my salary will increase. Every year there'll be another goal to aim for and another role to aim for. You know, I'll move house, I'll buy a bigger one, my mortgage will get higher. You know, at what point am I actually going to go, what do I actually want my life to be like? I want to have an impact, and I can't do it here.
Yeah.
So that was it, really, that moment.
Yeah. So you packed off, you went off to Melbourne. What happened next?
So I retrained. I trained in lots of things, Claire. One of the best things I ever did was went to see a hypnotherapist at the age of 26 when my back went, and just really realising how this mind works and how you can use this effectively was a massive eye-opener for me. And at that point I thought, do you know what, I'm going to go and learn about this. And it wasn't necessarily with the intention of being a hypnotherapist, it was to learn how the neuroscience of the brain works, so that I could start to get this stuff right. Because, of course, at 29, having been labelled a success by everyone around me, I was feeling like a complete failure.
Yeah.
Because I'd walked myself effectively down this path to being completely miserable and quite unwell as well. So I trained in clinical psychology, hypnotherapy, NLP, coaching. I even did a diploma in traditional Chinese medicine and shiatsu.
Wow, you are pretty much holistic approach there.
Yes, and it was because I was interested in Eastern methodology versus Western methodology, which to me seems quite backwards. You know, Eastern methodology is actually prevent illness, prevent problems, as opposed to cure them once they occur.
Yeah.
And I came back to the UK in 2006, kind of newly qualified. I'd been working as a hypnotherapist for 2 years because I'd trained for 3 years. I actually did a master's level there, which you can't do in this country. And I came back kind of going, okay then, so now what? And I found myself in a little town in South Wales called Penarth.
Oh, I know Penarth.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I loved living there. My priority when I came back to the UK was to live by the sea.
Yeah.
Near a city, because I knew that I was going to be starting my own business. But that was my first business back in 2006. And up until that point, I had I had a BTEC in business, so I had a qualification in it, but, let's face it, that doesn't, even people with MBAs say, actually it doesn't really teach you anything until you start doing it.
It's very different, isn't it? I mean, having done the corporate thing myself, when you come out of the corporate world, you think, oh, I can do this. It's different when you step into your own business, very different. But, if you make the right choices, then, it's possible.
Absolutely. So set up Alpha Therapy, which was my first business, and was advised by the one person that I knew in Wales to go out networking, which I did, and hated it because I went to a network that's kind of renowned for being full of, strict rules and guidelines, and it wasn't for me at all. And then I came across an organisation called For Networking that had just launched in the area, and went along to their launch event and became the group leader within a couple of meetings because, frankly, I didn't really have very much else to do.
Yeah.
New in the area, didn't really know anyone. It's like, actually, I'm a bit like that anyway. If I'm going to be there, I may as well be involved.
Yeah.
And that was really amazing, getting involved in running networking breakfast meetings and, just kind of got back into that elements of that corporate kind of, coordinating meetings and running teams and really enjoyed that and got quite addicted to launching networking groups and launched 16 in 8 months.
Across someone knows how to make it happen. but the good you play to your strengths, isn't it? That's the thing. You knew what you like to do. You got a thrill out of doing it. Otherwise you wouldn't just keep doing it. So playing to your strengths and doing something that you love and enjoy is really important, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that was exactly right. It was like, oh, this is easy. This is fun. And actually, I got to meet, because every group was run by 3 people, so I got to build the team and meet those people, and then they got to know about what I did, and of course, my business just grew.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really trying. So that was really interesting, watching it just kind of grow, and I got a name for myself. But what was interesting is I started to, of course, because I was in a business network then, I'd created a business network, and those people started coming to see me. And of course, they're all in business. So I was working with hypnotherapeutic techniques, if you like, to enable people to get through emotional or, you know, limiting beliefs or blocks, but who were in business.
Yes.
And so what happened was my coaching started to come through, and I started to coach once they'd been through the therapeutic process. I started to coach, and then of course I was learning so much about business that I started a business coach.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the journey, really. And whilst that was going on, I went from area leader to regional leader, and then eventually director of this network for the UK. So I then moved back to England because running a national business network from Wales didn't make very much sense. And we took that business national in 2 years, which was an amazing experience. And I had the privilege of observing thousands of people in business over that 4-year period in its entirety. And really what that gave me was I was really fascinated to work out what is the difference between someone, and you said it right at the beginning, someone who makes a success of their business and someone who appears to consistently struggle. You know, what's the difference? There's got to be a difference. It can't be chance. So I kind of made it my mission to work that out.
That's another little project.
Yeah, and that's where the book came from, because actually I worked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, obviously you're somebody who can, you know, take an idea, develop it, run with it, make it a success. So what is it that you do specifically to bring your ideas to life? What are the things, if you get an idea and you go, right, I want to do that, what is it that you do? What's the process that you take yourself through in order to make it happen?
Mind mapping.
Right.
Yeah, mind mapping. This is my favourite stuff in the world. Magic whiteboard.
Oh, I saw some of that the other day. I'm going to get to that. I thought, oh, what's that?
It means no matter where you are, as long as you've got that and a pen, you can have a whiteboard. And that's what I do, is it goes up on the wall, you know, the thing that I've thought of gets circled in the middle, and I just mind map it until it feels like I can start writing stuff down.
That's fantastic. And when you know, in what you do now, and the people, you know, what are the biggest obstacles that you have, and how do you overcome them? What are the things that you do to get past the things that are stopping you moving forward?
Obstacles. I mean, do I come up against obstacles? Probably the obstacles that I come up against the most, Claire, as you discovered this morning, are technological ones.
Yeah.
You know, that if my business is slowing down or not moving forward at the pace I'd like or expected, it's usually, I would say, 90% of the time down to technology.
Yeah.
So I made a very poor choice of IT support earlier on this year, and as a result I've had consistent IT issues. And so what do I do? Well, to be honest with you, I haven't got an answer for that, because of course you're almost bound by that, aren't you, to some extent? If you haven't got the skills to work that stuff out yourself, then, you know, I've been in a position where I've not been able to upload, you know, images and ebooks, and that stuff just slows you down. So that's probably the main obstacle I get. I mean, I think the obstacles that I perceive other people, you know, my clients having, are usually in here, ultimately.
Yeah.
They're usually about belief systems. So, you know, my answer to that always is, actually, you know, we can't sort our own stuff out. You know, and that includes people like you and I who do this for other people all the time. You know, we can't do it for ourselves. So, you know, I always advocate, you know, have a coach, or at least a mentor, even if it's not somebody that you actually pay to coach you, but have somebody else who you give permission to challenge you, you know, and who is committed and has an investment in your success in your life.
Yeah.
And I think
And how do you you know, in terms of your journey along the way, you've had some real troughs as well as some real highs, you know, some dips. So when you hit those troughs or you hit those dips, what is it that you do for yourself, or do you do it with somebody else to get yourself out of that? What are the things that really what do you do to motivate yourself out of it, to get you back, you make it happen mojo on?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is being really clear about what it is that actually, you know, motivates you, so that you're not motivating yourself. If that makes sense. So it's an internal driver, and that's really simple. That's about personal values. So the things that are actually important to you, the things that drive you, and the things that energize you. So I'm really clear about mine. Really clear about what it is that actually I don't need to be reminded to do it. It's really interesting. I listened to a hangout last night with Dr. John Demartini.
Oh yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he says, you know, you will never need motivation again if you're focusing on operating by your highest values. And I thought it was a really interesting way of putting it, because I use the terminology, what motivates you? And you've just used it as well. And what he's saying is, actually, you don't need motivation when you're operating at your highest value. So he's saying the same thing, but he's got a slightly different take on it. Yeah. And, you know, my values are learning. You know, learning for me is number one. Creating and writing. So, you know, I write a lot, but actually I like to create models and systems, and I like to write stuff in such a way that people can attach to it, because actually it's got structure.
Yes.
And speaking and teaching, you know, imparting information and knowledge, but ultimately all five of those things are about one thing, and that is enabling success for others. Now, the way I motivate myself, Claire, is by getting back to those things. So if I'm feeling demotivated or de-energized, I've got those things written down and I remind myself why I do what I do. And as long as I'm learning, creating, writing, teaching and speaking with the intent of enabling success for others, I don't need motivation.
Yeah, that is your motive. That is it. That's
it.
Yeah. And it's and quite often people don't know all that is, and sometimes, you know, if I have it, it's like for me, and I know this from a lot of people. I know a lot of people get stuck behind their computers, and I know if I'm stuck too long behind a computer, I get miserable, you know, and I need to get out and see people and look in the eye. So the speaking and teaching element is really important, and obviously you've got to do the learning and be able to create, to be able to write, to do that. But yeah. I do find absolutely that you, once you know what you love and you feel passionate about it, when you get out and do it, it's so easy to go, actually, no, I need to take a break and I need to go meet someone for coffee, or I need to go and see what it is. It's getting up and getting out there and actually getting on with it, isn't it?
It totally is. And when you find yourself, I mean, I'm like you, I don't like to be behind a computer for too long, but actually, if I've got 2 days in a week where I am behind my computer so that I can create some content, because actually that enables me to go and talk about it and teach it,
yeah.
Then that's very energizing for me.
Yeah. It's the balance. It's getting that balance right. But it's reminding yourself. It's knowing what you like and what your highest values are. What are the things that get you motivated? What are the things that internally, you know, get you moving forward? And I think a lot of people get stuck because they don't know what that is.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the most common thing for me is, and that's why I say internal. When I say that the biggest blocks are in here, you know, the act of attraction was born out of the realization that the number one reason why people fail when they fail, 100% of the time, Claire, and I say that, you know, people have said, God, that's a big clap, but it's 100% of the time, is that there's a tension between what's going on in their head and what they're actually doing in reality. And I call that a tension between their internal activity, because whether it's a thought or a feeling or a sensation or a belief, it's still an activity because we have control over it, and their external activity. And actually, when you can align the two things so that what's going on in here and what's happening out there are aligned with each other and congruent and not in conflict,
yeah.
Then that's when you start realising the outcomes that you want.
Yeah.
And I learned that the hard way.
And it's interesting because what I find as well is that when I'm working with people, that they need almost like a process to put themselves in. It was really interesting what you were saying about systems and processes and models and systems. That I find that if people have well, if you think it through like this in this order, then you will get the result you want. Because I think people get so confused and so wrapped up in their own thoughts and locked inside their own thinking that they can't find a way out. And I think that's what's brilliant about this book, about your book in particular, is the fact it gives the systems and models that you can use. It's very practical, but that comes with a deep understanding of what's going on in here.
Sure. And that was my intention, Claire, was to take what, I mean, you described it beautifully on Facebook, you know, where woo-woo meets practical. And of course, the irony is that whilst it's perceived as woo-woo, i.e. this kind of internal fluffy stuff, it's actually based on neurological science, which of course I know you understand completely. But it's perceived to be woo-woo and fluffy. It's like, oh, they're talking about beliefs and feelings and desires and you know, values, and it's like, oh, you know, give me a business model, you know, that will help me make money. And the irony is that if you haven't got all that other stuff sorted, the business model won't work anyway.
Yeah.
And even if it does work and it does make you money, it's very unlikely to make you happy.
Yes.
You haven't got that first stuff right. So the irony is it's based on neuroscience, and it's actually more important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. The way you explain things is so simple and so so clear and so obvious when you read. Think, God, yeah, you kind of go, God, well, you kind of knew that, but you hadn't acknowledged it. And I think we live in a world where we're so driven to do things and move forward that you don't afford the time and space to do that internal work that you need to do in order to get the success that you need.
Totally. And one of the barriers to that for people is, you know, financing somebody to help them do it. Because if you want to work with somebody who's good, then they're going to cost money. And that's what the book's designed to do, is that actually that book, and I've developed an online program as well which leads on from the book, which is also very low price point, intentionally to allow people to, because, you know, I want people to be able to access this stuff without it costing the earth.
Yeah.
So the activities in the book actually enable people to get the outcomes that they desire for the equivalent of £15.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. And it's very well laid out and and you take through logical steps that completely make sense. And you know this because this is what you do with people all the time. So
sure.
It's a process that repeats itself when you're out in the big wild world. So in terms of, you know, people who are listening today, what do you think are the 3 most important things for them to start their Make It Happen journey, or if they've already started, to make it even more successful?
Sure. The first thing is to do the internal work first. So, and I'm actually going to split that into 2 things. So, you know, one is get clear about what you want.
Yeah.
And what's interesting here, and I know that's, for some people that's going to sound like a big task, because that's the problem, because they don't know what they want. But if you don't know and you can't access that on your own, go and work with somebody to help you do it. It'll be the best money you ever spend. You know, going to see a hypnotherapist when I was 26 years old was without a doubt the single most important decision I ever made in my life. I did not go to her to work out what I wanted to do with my life. I went to her to give up smoking.
You went out, came out confused.
Well, she said, well, tell me why you smoke, and tell me in what circumstances you smoke. And then, of course, we started to talk about what was going on in my life. And, you know, 6 sessions later, my life had completely changed forever.
Wow.
You know, go and work with somebody. Go and find somebody who's a good fit for you, who can help you work out what you want, because it's the single most important thing you will ever do. The second thing is work out why you want it. And that's probably more important, actually, is to work out what the driver is. So we've just talked about that. And get really clear about what you're driven by, not what you think you should be driven by, but what ultimately gets you out of bed in the morning. And be honest about it. You know, for some people, it's not their family, even though they have one. And for some people, they find that quite hard to deal with and to accept and acknowledge. But the problem is that because they believe that it should be about their family, everything they're doing is about that.
Yeah.
And therefore, they're not getting anywhere. What's important is you don't have to tell anyone. Work out what it is that motivates you and that drives you. What are your values? And simply what that means is what's important to you. Is it recognition? Is recognition fundamentally the thing that drives you? If it is, acknowledge it, accept it, and build it into your business. Leverage it. You know, it's different for everybody. Recognition's a big one for me.
Yeah.
It's not fame, because I'm a bit camera shy, so it's not fame, but recognition. So, you know, writing that book and having my name on that book and having people appreciate what's in that book and say things like you've said, Claire, which is it takes you through a logical process. It's practical. To be recognised for having the ability to take quite complex information and present it in a way that is practical is important to me, which is why that's why I do it.
Yeah.
And recognising that that's one of my values was really, really key and fundamental, and being okay with telling people that as well. So that's the second thing, is that. And then the third thing, and this is still internal work out what belief systems you have that support that outcome, and then work out what belief systems you have that don't.
Yeah.
And then fix them.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, all the desire in the world and all the clarity of why won't be enough. You know, we all have old, outdated conditioning that gets in the way. And again, the best thing I ever did was to go and work with a hypnotherapist at 26 years old and deal with that stuff. And then later on, of course, I trained for 4 years to continue to deal with that stuff, because when you train in Australia, you go into therapy for 3 years. And I'm not suggesting that anyone does that, but what I am suggesting people do is that they work out what the blocks are and deal with them.
Yes.
Because then you remove it forever.
And I think sometimes people know what the blocks are, but they kind of ignore them and park them and kind of just pretend they're not there.
Yes.
They don't deal with them. It's like you take, like you just said, just fix it. You know, get it fixed, get it sorted. You know, because until you do, then you're not authentic in the outside world or with yourself.
It's a bit like thinking about a horse race. You know, and you've got hurdles. Well, you've got a choice. You can either continue to have hurdles, because that's what the belief system is. It's something you have to jump over every day, every minute for some people, or you just remove them. And I prefer the latter approach. And that would be my first suggestion, is actually, do you know what? A bit of investment of time, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, bit of investment in money, but actually it's gone, it's dealt with, you move on. And then after that, start getting clear about what needs to happen in order to make those things happen. But that really comes last.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where a lot of people start, and they make a plan and it's a to-do list of things they've got to do to make it happen. But actually, it's all that internal work that really is so important, absolutely crucial to the success.
That is what I did, Dal. That is exactly what I did. I planned first. And the problem is I achieved it all. I didn't want any of it.
How interesting.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing journey, and I'm so thrilled that you came today and shared that with us. So if there was anybody who wanted to find out more about you, your book, where to find you, where do I send them, Tamsen? Where do I need to send them to?
Well, the easiest place, because I've got a number of websites, so the easiest place is to tamsengarrie.biz. Because there, you can find out everything that I do, really. That's where my blog is, and also there's a free sample of my book on that website as well. So if anybody's interested in just reading the first 30 pages to get a feel for it,
Yeah.
And that's probably the best place to go to download that.
And you've got a Facebook page as well, haven't you, on Facebook, and it's your name, Tamsen Garrie.
Yeah, Tamsen Garrie on Facebook, The Active Attraction on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm fortunate that there's only one Tamsen Garrie in the world, I think, so at least I'm easy to find.
So is there anything we can help you with, Tamsen? What is the most important thing for you right now? What are you working on at the minute?
What am I working on? Well, in the whole spirit of creation, I've created a service product for small businesses called Enact, which is designed to fix, 3 issues that I've seen consistently in the small business world, and by that I mean micro businesses and businesses of up to maybe 3 or 4 employees, and that is that they lack accountability, Claire. One of the best things about running our own business is that we're not answerable to anybody apart from our clients, and we love that. But that's also our greatest weakness, is that we're not answerable to anybody. So this program or this product is designed to fix that, really, to enable small business owners to come together to hold each other accountable to specific actions on a monthly basis, so that you get this continual progressive movement forward and ultimately growth. So, and then the second thing is collaboration, which is also another area that I think isn't really understood in small business, and I really want to enable small business owners to spot collaboration opportunities, but also to understand how best to collaborate with each other, because there are lots of different levels of collaboration. And the last one is training, which is very simply, we don't need to understand everything that there is that needs to be known to run and build a business, because actually if we're collaborating, we're outsourcing, we're playing to our strengths, then that's actually more effective. But what we do need is a basic understanding of the basics, the fundamentals. So yes, so that's at www.en-act.co.uk. And what would be wonderful is just for people to go and have a look at that, really. There's a daily accountability tool on the front of that site, and to download that, and then they will receive accountability emails on a Monday and a Friday. But ultimately, as we grow and act, to perhaps get involved by joining an accountability group. And it's like a mini mastermind once a month, but at a price point that's incredibly affordable for small businesses.
Yeah.
So that's my new project. That's growing, and I'm not in any rush with that one. It's want that to grow nice and organically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be great if people were interested in going and having a look at that. That'd be really good.
Well, I'll make sure that both the links are added to anything that I put out. I'll make sure it's on the video and also in the Facebook group where I post this video as well.
Thank you, Claire.
Tamsen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you for sharing your very personal journey, but also your advice on how people can make it happen. So we'll be sending people your way.
Lovely. Thank you, Claire. It was absolutely lovely to see you.
And you, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, you take care.
Right, take care. Bye.
Bye.